Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening's event. It's our first generation student success series, and tonight's event is a roundtable with alumni and CUNY students. And we just wanted to give a quick overview of the event. We started the first gen student success series because there is a vast number of students both within and beyond CUNY who are first gen students, and we felt that there was a gap in resources that were available, support, and really an acknowledgement of the unique experiences of this starting this series. I'll turn it over to Dr. Alsop, and she can talk a little bit about why this particular roundtable and give you a little more information.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. So we held our first event earlier this semester. It was called Navigating Higher Ed as a First Generation Student. And I think coming out of that, what became really clear was that, we kind of gave this sort of general overview of some of the challenges that Dr. Marquez Lewis alluded to, some of the sort of more singular aspects of first gen student experience, but we wanted to hear from our own students about their experience specifically at SPS and at CUNY. And I'll just say that historically, as a professor, my favorite events are always those that have really centered students and allowed students to speak directly. So rather than speculating about the student experience, we just wanted to go right to the source and to talk to our students and alums. So we're so delighted to have a really wonderful selection of students here tonight who represent a range of programs, both grad and undergrad, and wonderful alums. So we're really excited to get into the conversation.
So this evening, the two of us will be moderating the event. So my name is Dr. Carla Marquez Lewis. I am the director for the psychology program.
And I'm Dr. Elizabeth Alsop. I direct the communication and media program here at SPS.
And we're delighted to introduce our wonderful panelists.
Yes. Okay. Well, now without further ado, this is the fun part. So, our panelists, as I was just saying, submitted really rich and exciting bios, which we trimmed slightly. So I'll just share the highlights. So I'm going to introduce our first three panelists tonight and then turn the mic over to Dr. Marquez Lewis. Our first panelist in our lineup is Dominique Bishop. Dominique is currently enrolled in the Human Relations program at CUNY SPS with an expected graduation date of May 2022. Woohoo! She is pursuing career goals in the human resources field, which is why the HRL program was most appealing to her. She's a first generation student, and this will be her second college degree completed. As a full-time working adult, she decided to enroll in college for a second degree in 2018. It was a challenging decision, but she is glad she took the leap and is looking forward to finishing the program strong. So, thanks so much for being here, Dominique. It's exciting to know your graduation date is in sight. Our second panelist is Tyrone Brown. Ty was born and raised in the Bronx and earned his AS in business management from Hostos Community College, CUNY, and a BS in business and an MS in business management leadership from CUNY SPS. He has plans to pursue a PhD in finance with a concentration in real estate from Baruch's Zicklin School of Business and the CUNY Graduate Center. He is also a father of four, and for more than 20 years has managed and directed operations for various banks and financial service institutions, specializing in mortgage portfolio management, credit risk underwriting, and default loan servicing. And he just informed us before the event that his daughter was just elected to yet another honor society, so congrats on that. And then our third panelist is Alicia Camille Diggs. Alicia is a senior currently enrolled in CUNY SPS's Health Services Administration program. Alicia is a full-time student, an employee, and a mother to a wonderful preteen son. Her hobbies include reading, cooking, and establishing herself in the healthcare industry. As a first-generation student, Alicia has overcome various obstacles, and her mission is to show women that anything is possible with a plan and complete focus. I like that mission statement. Alicia's accomplishments include maintaining a 4.0 grade point average, exceeding expectations in her career, and being the best role model for incoming health professionals. So Dr. Marquez Lewis, I'll let you read our other two panelist bios.
Great. So I'm going to read Nashville Nahar's bio, although she may or may not be able to make it this evening. She may be a little bit late. So Nashville Nahar is a student in her last semester of the Health Services Administration program at CUNY SPS. She moved to the United States at the age of 8 and always looked at education as the path to freedom and breaking particular cultural cycles. After fulfilling many family, cultural, and religious obligations, she continued to make education a priority And although it has taken her over a decade to get her bachelor's degree, she believes that she's learned more about herself in the last few semesters she's been at SPS than any time in her life. While she attended SPS to earn a degree, she says her biggest achievement is graduating as a better version of herself. She hopes she can help other first-generation students entering SPS by sharing her story. Our next panelist is Jade Powell. Jade Powell is currently an ASAP academic advisor at the Borough of Manhattan Community College. And in January of 2020, she received a Master of Science in Disability Services and Higher Administration from CUNY SPS. It was a wonderful experience, she said, where she learned, grew, and was able to evolve as a student in her graduate program. She's thankful for CUNY SPS because it fit well into her lifestyle and it allowed her to gain knowledge in a field that she's very passionate about. And then our final panelist is Lisa Sheridan. Lisa Sheridan is a proud graduate of the Communication and Media program. She's class of 2020. She attended SPS to initiate a career pivot when her fashion design career hit an impasse. Since graduating, she has been working in the marketing department as a researcher and writer at CUNY SPS. She is also a single mom and an MA candidate in the English literature program at Brooklyn College. Her grandfather only had a fourth grade education and was functionally illiterate. She said that her grandmother had to fill out all of his documents for him. And she believes that if she could make her educational dreams come true, then you can too. So with that, as you can see, we have a wonderful group of panelists this evening. We want to start a deep dive into the questions and the experiences of our students. So why don't we open it up by starting with a question about, it's a little bit multifaceted. What made you choose SPS and what expectations did you have about college when you were thinking about attending, and how did those expectations match up to the reality? Anyone want to start?
Well, I chose SPS because my former supervisor, she actually was attending SPS at the time when I met her. And I was speaking to her about wanting to go back to school for my master's degree. And she said, I think this would be a great program for you. But for me, it was like, how am I going to manage school, work, family obligations, and other things, in addition to a new job where I'm dealing with the caseload of 150 students? How am I going to do this and give my all to school? When I was in school prior, I worked part-time, I had that time. And she said, I believe you really, truly could do it. So I researched, looked into it, and I just went for it. And I said, you know what, let me go back to school. So it was difficult in the beginning, but honestly, SPS, I feel, not that I'm shading any other schools, but it really, really helps adults who work. Like, I mean it. Like, their course load, the professors, they really, truly cater to the working person. And that's what I loved so much about it when I started attending SPS for my master's degree.
That's great to hear, Jade. Lisa, do you want to pick up on what Jade was saying? I think you have your hand up.
Sure. And let me put my hand down. Whoops. I chose SPS because I needed to go online because I was working full time, and I have a son with special needs. And so, he required a lot of help through school. And so I needed something that could really fit my lifestyle. And when I did research, I found that, CUNY SPS was nationally ranked and the best in New York State for online education, and it fit my budget. So the choice was pretty much made. As far as preconceptions versus what it turned out to be, I had a full career before I came to CUNY SPS. And so I was coming as a really non-traditional student. And I was concerned about how it would feel to be an older person in a classroom. And when I got to CUNY SPS and I saw, how diverse the student body is and how inclusive, then I just was another story in the room, and I didn't feel left out or outside, and I felt welcomed, and I felt like I belonged.
That's really great to hear. And I don't want to encourage less rosy assessments, but I am curious to know if any of our panelists had expectations about college in general, not just SPS, that you felt like either weren't fulfilled or you just got to school and you were like, this is a rude awakening for me in some ways. Ty, did you want to speak to that or something else?
Definitely. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to have everyone here and to be a part of this. Yes, I have an extensive background in business, and one of the things I've always noticed was I lacked that fundamental basic principles that a lot of employers always looked upon for people in the workforce to be able to provide. When you have a lot of experience, you basically went to a lot of shops and got a lot of qualitative, learning and experience. But there's these principles and practices that are rudimentary to a successful business when you look at the full scope of the operation. So I went back to school. I had originally a degree in engineering, but I felt like I've been in business so long, I need a business degree. So I went to, as you mentioned in the bio, to host those, and I got my, my beak wet, as they say, in the business world as an academic. And then I felt that was just the beginning. So I looked for a school that can ultimately, like Lisa said, and like the other young lady said, that can mirror not just what I'm trying to acquire as a scholar, but also as a business professional. Mm-hmm. So with doing some research, I looked into CUNY School of Professional Studies, looked into the various programs, and saw that, they may have that what I'm looking for. When I came in expecting to be sat down, given a lot of theoreticals, a lot of principles, and ultimately it was beyond the scope of that. Every day in the classroom became a matter of learning principles and practices that you can take back to the workplace the very next day and apply. So I found that empirical knowledge was essential to not just saying that you have a degree and getting a degree that's long overdue, but ultimately getting the knowledge and the confidence that you get from knowing that the things you've been doing, the practices you've been facilitating for years, there's an actual lineage to that, and you're learning it so you can jive it all together. So when I got into it, like Lisa said, as an adult, student, you worry about having students next to you that are of a much younger age, the age of your children practically, and you find like maybe you won't fit in. But you'll see that ultimately at SPS, even the young students, the younger breed of students coming in, they have a lot to offer as well, because they might have a little bit of knowledge, but they have a whole lot of energy. And that helps the older students be able to drive forward in order to learn the new information, the new technologies, the new methods that you can apply even in your later years, that you can still be essential in the current marketplace.
That's great, Ty. It sounds like you're saying that if your expectations were exceeded, or at least challenged or broadened in certain ways too, that you found things here you weren't necessarily looking for, but were really glad to find, which is of course lovely to hear.
Definitely.
Alicia or Dominique, did you all want to jump in or share anything about sort of, again, how you came to the school, how your experience here aligned or didn't align with your initial expectations?
Yeah, initially I was working in the medical field, and I was using my first degree or my associate's degree to be in that field. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just knew that it didn't make me a lot of money. And, I just felt like I was running into dead-end jobs unless I was going to full on go to medical school to become a doctor. So I felt like there had to be another way for me to help people. And it was hard for me to find a good school that had the major that I wanted. Like, I didn't find a lot of schools that have anything interesting that I could like directly apply to my career goals. And then once I started working at the Department of Investigation, sorry, I have a dog. So if you guys hear a lot of commotion, that's him jumping all over the place. Sorry. So once I got the job at the Department of Investigation in the Human Resources Department, and I found CUNY SPS, it aligned perfect with my career goals. Like, it was something I can directly relate to what I was about to start, like a new endeavor, a new career path that I wasn't used to, but very much interested in. So between that and the scheduling of it all, being able to attend class after work, because I joined probably about 2 years before the pandemic started. maybe in 2018.
Mhm.
So I was still doing in-person classes, so I got to experience that. So yeah, it wasn't what I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be hard, too hard for me to handle. But just because everything aligned together, I still just took a leap of faith, basically, and joined anyway, and I went for it. So that was unexpected as well.
That's great to hear, Dominique. I'm glad it's challenging, but not too hard, not too challenging.
Right.
That's the sweet spot. Alicia, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I have my hand up. I think the most significant thing for me was when joining CUNY SPS are the professors. I wasn't sure what to expect because professors have so many students. So to see a professor not only know your name, but know your face is very important. And the feedback that you receive from your assignments, if you're doing well or if it needs work, was very important to me, especially now because I am in the career in healthcare field as a coder, and I audit charts. So to have a professor like own in and say, you're doing well on this, or this needs work, or, even in the last 2 weeks reviewing resumes and cover letters, I'm finished in less than 3 weeks. So to see a professor take that time to truly look at your work and go further and beyond that is important. And I think that is something I just didn't expect when I came here.
Should we move on, Carla?
Yeah, no, Alicia, thanks for sharing that, because I think we'll talk a little bit later about, some of the things that helped, and, we'll probably, ask a little bit more about how that relationship with your faculty member impacted you.
Yeah, but before we get to that, we'll focus on obstacles. No, we felt like this was a question that came up. For those of you who are here listening in, we had a really wonderful and rich sort of preliminary discussion with the panelists to kind of vet our questions with them and see what they wanted to ask that we hadn't thought of. And one question I think that came up, was just really like, thinking about a time when, you've encountered an obstacle during your college career and sort of how you overcame it, and particularly sort of like what resources did you draw on or look to kind of get past that particular obstacle. So, in the interest of time, I'm sure there are many different stories you could probably tell, but if you could maybe think about one particular instance that you think might be really helpful to share with the group, and maybe potentially even inspiring or useful to a fellow student who's on the call right now. So whoever would like to start off, the floor is open. Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, this challenge wasn't academic, but it was for extracurricular. I was involved in a project that I wanted to see happen called The Kiosk, and it is the school's newspaper, and I was working to launch it. And I ran into trouble with funding, and I ran into trouble with infrastructure. And what I found was that I had to reach out and build a community, and I even had to reach out outside of CUNY SPS. I reached out to the CUNY School of Journalism, and I reached out to the Student Senate, and I was going everywhere, from hat in hand for money and for support. And I can tell you that when you ask, you usually receive. If you come with a positive ask where you've done your homework, you've done your homework, and you come with this ask, you get the support. I got free seminars for the writers from CUNY. I got money from the USS. I got help from, the academic departments within the school. And, it took about a year, but we launched it. And it's something that, I'm really proud of now. But, the key is use the network and use the foundation here. College is a great place to experiment with your dreams. You know, it's almost, it's a safe microcosm. You know, it's a smaller world, and it's a world that's here to support. And, you know, everybody within the whole university system is dedicated to our success as students. And, you know, I think that's an important thing to remember, and then just not be afraid to ask. That's all. Thanks.
That's a lot. That's great. Other panelists want to weigh in? Go ahead, Ty.
Yes, I have to second what Lisa said. College is an experience, and in and of itself, we learned later on in life, some of the older, students, that networking is essential, especially in this modern day and time. So when you're in a school like SPS and you're working with not just people seeking academic achievement, but ultimately have careers, have experiences, have insights and connections that go beyond the scope of just someone coming in, on an entry level, you have the opportunity to both network with students and faculty and administrators that can pretty much be a gateway to furthering your career endeavors or establishing a new career endeavor that you may never thought that would take off one day, or you might even consider. So you get the best of both worlds and the bigger bang for your buck when you can go to an organization, an institution that ultimately is not just grooming you for the future, but have you positioned right in the future as you sit there in the classroom each and every day.
That's such a great and important message. I'm always trying to encourage my students to, both what you and Lisa said, right? To just really, lean into the networks, both your peer networks, your networks with your professor and with the school. Jade, did you want to share something about an obstacle and a strategy?
Yes, I have to third that, because asking is super important. You never know until you ask someone, right? So I know I encountered many, I felt like defeats, but I think they just were learning moments at my time here at SPS. And I remember I took a summer course, and that was my first time ever in CUNY period taking a summer course, because I'm a product of the CUNY system, got my associate's degree, bachelor's, all in CUNY. So it's only right you get your master's at CUNY too. So I just felt super overwhelmed. It was during a time at my job where it's extremely busy because we're recruiting new students, dealing with your regular students. So I felt very overwhelmed. And I remember, the conversations I have with my students, sometimes you do have to practice what you preach. And if I'm telling my students they need to speak to their professor, maybe I should follow through too and speak to my professor, because I just felt like everything that I felt happened that could have went wrong. But in every wrong moment, I believe you learn something, despite it being a wrong moment. So I had to take my own advice and speak to my professor. And she was just so amazing. I'll never forget her, Professor Mock. She was so amazing, so accommodating, so helpful, because I'm like, oh, well, maybe she won't let me have an extension. Maybe she will. I don't know. But I'm like, you don't know until you ask question. So when I went and asked her, she gave it to me. I was able to get the work completed, but I just physically felt overwhelmed. But I said, you know what? The end result is having this degree, having something else where I could be able to help my students, having resources, having connections where I could be able to assist my students. So I really appreciated that moment. And that was the moment that stood out the most to me my whole time being at SPS.
Jade, I'm glad that you raised that issue, because for those of you who attended the first event, this came up as part of the conversation, and I think it came up again in our pre-chat, that a lot of times students in general, but particularly first generation college students, do not feel entitled to their professor's time, or entitled to ask questions, or to need things and to get the resources. And to me, that's the most helpful thing that students can do for themselves, is to reach out for help and to ask for things from their professors. We're here for you and we want to see you succeed. We just need to know what you need. And so I hope that that's a message that everyone hears who's listening to this, is ask your professors, talk to them, tell them what you need. They will help you. Ty, did you want to add something? Or is your hand still up from before?
No, yes. What I was going to say is, I can tell you from personal experience that what you're saying is 100% accurate. As adults, we become a little bit more proudful and prideful than even young students coming into college. And you feel as though, because you know you have a lot on your plate, your professors are also adults. They probably have a lot on their plate also with the younger students and the students, like you said. Sometimes we get a sense that they're more deserving because they're young and they need, and we don't. But I can tell you, like Jade said, if you go to SPS, know that everyone's there to help you succeed. Because I've had experiences where life and work-life balance just went haywire, and the faculty was supportive. They reached out and they extended to me and told me, listen, Ty, I know the work you do. I know the type of person you are. What's going on? Talk to us. Talk to me. And sure enough, I conveyed to them the situation. They took it and understood, and they worked with me, and we built a plan of action to get back on track and to succeed and to graduate with honors. But again, not every institution, especially large scale schools, sometimes have those type of means because they look at it as a numbers game. So when you're just a number amongst 45,000 others, it's like, can we really tailor that much time to the individual? SPS always tailors the time for everyone. And that's why, like I said, great institution, great school, and definitely somewhere you want to learn to achieve.
That's great. I'm really glad this theme came up, and it kind of does, I think we'll ask in a little bit about sort of advice that you would offer to other students, but I do think this is such a central thing that, you know, we've been talking about. We talked about our first event, and, you know, one of the things I always try to do with my students to normalize asking is I talk about how frequently I have to ask for extensions on journal articles, or like we're all late sometimes, right? We all, as you said, Ty, we have a lot on our plates. And I think the more students can understand that this is just actually learning to ask in a sort of professional way is actually, that's a skill, right? That you're actually going to need. And we all use, right, every day in the workplace. So little sidebar there. Do you want to go ahead, Dr. Marquez Lewis, to the next question?
Sure. We're going to shift just a little bit, you know, thinking about not just, you know, obstacles that you might encounter as a first generation student within the classroom, but even moving beyond the classroom. So we had talked at the first event, and also this came up at our pre-chat, which was that there's a scholar, Jennifer Morton, who wrote a book, and it talks about these hidden costs of upward mobility. And, you know, for first generation college students, you know, it might include, you know, growing a little bit distant from one's family or leaving certain things behind. And so we wanted to talk to you and just kind of advance that conversation that we had already started with you for everyone that's here tonight. If you could talk a little bit about whether this is something you've experienced and really how you've handled it, because this impacts people in a very real and personal way, and we'd love to hear about it. Anyone that would like to begin? Alicia.
Hi. Yes, when it comes to the growing distance from your family and your community, I think as a first generation student, it happens more often than none, and it's something that's not truly spoken about because you don't want to go against your family. You don't want to feel as if you're an outcast, or as you say, the black sheep of the family, because you're pursuing something that wasn't done before. Sometimes your parents may say they're very proud of you, you're doing great, but if you come and not having a complaint, but you're feeling overwhelmed, well, this is what you asked for, this is what you wanted to do. And it's like, that's not why I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you because I need that pick-me-up. I need someone to say, it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay. I got you. I'm here for you. And that I find is slim to none in a lot of communities. It may be said on an outcast, but truly it's really not there. And it makes you feel alone at times. And that's just what I wanted to bring to the table.
Yeah, Alicia, I think you raised a really good point that a lot of people feel isolation, right? A lot of first generation students within their own communities and their own families. And, as you put it, you get the praise and you get the I'm proud of you. But the flip side is that sometimes people can't understand what you're going through. And that can be really difficult. Did others want to add to what Alicia was talking about or share their own, other additional things that they've encountered? Dominique?
Yes. I can relate to that as well with my own family members. And I feel like a lot of times I get a little distant when I'm just caught up in schoolwork and finals, and I feel like they don't understand because they haven't been through the whole college cycle, and they don't understand how important this can be for me, to the point where I'm distancing myself because I need time to focus on my schoolwork and they're not a priority anymore. So I feel like, yeah, there is some disconnect sometimes with family when you're going through the motions of being in college, especially as a first generation college student. They just don't get it. Sometimes they just don't get it. And yeah, that can draw a little, space or a wedge between the two, but it's fine. You get back on track, you focus on your schoolwork, and at the end, they're still always there to congratulate you. They're not always there to understand what's going on, but as long as they give you your space and let you tend to your schoolwork, it's something that can be overcome.
Dominique, can I ask you, when these kinds of things happen, what are your strategies how do you handle it?
Usually I try to communicate more, basically, with how I feel and why this is so important to me, rather than getting upset or telling them they just don't understand. I'd rather explain myself, and I learned that actually going through a few courses at SPS. I think it was a interpersonal communication class. So I feel like that course definitely allowed me to apply a few things I learned to my personal life, as far as communicating with my family, communicating with the people I work with, the people I work for. So I was able to just explain to them why this was important to me, and and let them in a way that maybe they didn't have access to me before. And then eventually they would come around and give me my space and understand where I was coming from. It's like, now I'm in my last semester, well, my second to last semester, and my family's doing great. They're not bothering me too much. They're allowing me my space to get this done. They've definitely understood nowadays how important this is to me and how close I am to the finish line. So I've been getting a lot of support from everybody. So it's a learning experience for me. It's a learning experience for them. So
great. Ty, you wanted to add something?
I have to agree with Dominic. One of the keys that I've utilized, I have 4 children. So even the older 2 that's out of grad school still need attention. And the younger 2 that's trying to get to college, they need attention. So just even with the children, I found that if you try to share when time allows, some of the things that you're experiencing academically, some of the things that you're studying, you're learning about, some of the nuances you're encountering, and try to even use some of that knowledge firsthand towards how they may be seeing some of these things when their time comes to becoming college students, you can engage. So you're kind of like sharing the experience with them. Sometimes I'll have my daughter and my youngest son sitting with me while I'm doing schoolwork, or they're over, hanging out with me while I'm in my study, watching me, bang my head against the desk and cramming for an exam, or ultimately in the crunch to get an assignment done. And it's reflective. They see it as, oh, they go through that too. So now they don't feel like I'm ignoring them. They are seeing that I'm going through some of the experiences similar to what they go through in high school and when they was in college. And ultimately the same thing goes with the older, siblings and friends and family. I have friends that ultimately want you to go left. And I'm like, I can't, because I have an assignment to do, or I have this engagement to do right now. And they're like, yo, you forgot about us. Oh, see, you went to college and now you don't know anybody. And it's like, no, it's not that I've gone away from you. I'm trying to grow as an individual, that I can better myself, my community, and those that I care and love about. And that includes them. So they see this not as me trying to do something to deviate from them, but to ultimately, collectively work with them. And like I say, when they have aspirations and you see that they might want to start a business, or they have a talent or skill, and you're learning different methods, whether it's in the health, the health administration field, or whether it's in psychology or business or accounting, there's always these skills and traits that we pick up academically that other people need, because the key to academics is service. So if you could be a service for others in the workplace, you can also be a service to some of the people that might feel a little disenfranchised, like your family members, and get them maybe off the couch and maybe get them a little bit more motivated to maybe pursue avenues that you pursue, and not look at it as something dissident, but something that we all can achieve by.
Well, that's great. Dr. Knox posted a question that I think fits in really well here. So we'll pose it to all of you. We've talked about some of the disconnect that can happen, but on the flip side, what have been some of the positive impacts of your being the first in your family to pursue an education? Lisa?
I can tell you about my son. My son has spectrum disorder. And so throughout his schooling, he struggled. I mean, he's really, really, really smart and he tests really well. But the school atmosphere is really hard for him. So, I mean, he tested well enough to get into Brooklyn Tech, but once he was in there, he was floundering and he just didn't fit in. And so he got to the point where he really didn't like school anymore. But watching me do what I'm doing and, coming home from work and then getting to work, on the computer and then doing my schoolwork and then pushing to achieve goals. Kids watch and learn, and he learned by my example. And I think, the other thing he learned is it's better to do it when you're young because you have more energy. Older people have problems with sleep deprivation. So, the positive impact was, despite the fact that he knows he's going to have to struggle and it will be hard, he learned about asking, as we've talked about before. He learned about getting over the fear of his disability, and he learned the importance, the importance of hard work and, a college degree. So for me, it's, it was a win-win. I got the degree and then my son got to see from my example.
Jade?
I think for me, I like to call it a full circle moment. My mom put me through school as a single mother. I did not receive any financial aid. They thought we were rich, but we weren't. So it took a lot of sacrifice on her part, me working as well as going to school, but her always saying that it's important that you get your education. I want you to have it. If anything happens to me, I want you to be able to care for yourself. So for me, it was I can never lose situation. I'm going to have to get through school by any means necessary situation, whether it be not hanging with friends for a bit, maybe not watching my favorite show. At the time, Netflix wasn't out when I was in school, so it was a little different. You miss it. But, I didn't have that opportunity to fail. And I didn't want to for myself anyway. So I initially didn't want to start at a community college, but I think that was one of the best things I could have ever done for myself, which is why I am such an advocate for community colleges. I think they are amazing places to start your education, no matter what. I'm a huge, huge advocate, which is why too now I work at a community college because I want to give back. But just seeing her sacrifice for me so that way I can continue to go to school and I could lay a foundation for myself. That way, whenever I do have a family, they could benefit from that. So I've always appreciated that. My mom never was like, well, you need to do this major or that. She allowed me to be who I was in college. She allowed me to go down the path that I did. And I will forever be grateful for her for that, because in turn, it has helped me be able to speak to my students about doing something that you love as opposed to doing something that you hate. It's harder to go to a job you hate every day than a job you love. And as much as I get stressed sometimes at work, I truly passionately love what I do. I enjoy it. So, you know, being able to add this master's degree on as the topper, for me, it's just a full circle moment.
I love that phrase, Jade. That's really great. A full circle moment. Alicia, I know you put something in the chat. I don't want to put you on the spot about the impact for you on your son.
Yes, my son is my heart in human form. If I'm tired, he'll come and rub on me. If I'm studying, he'll make me a cup of tea. Mind you, he's 11. He pushes me more than he knows. And it makes me feel so accomplished, so strong, so blessed because he's watching me. And I know I can't allow myself to fail because he's watching me. And he's like, I'm going to go to college like my mommy. I'm going to be smart like my mommy. He tells his teacher, my mother has a 4.0. She's still in college. She's doing great. And I just look at that and I say, that is what keeps me going. So when you say a full circle moment, it's just going around. And I'm like, I know I'm doing the right thing because he sees it. And that is just, it's beyond for me.
All right, so I guess moving on to the next question. This was actually something that also grew out of our kind of chat as a group ahead of time. And it's something I think we sort of touched on. And really, I think the question is sort of asking you all to reflect a little bit, if you would like to, on how your experience as a first generation student may have been shaped by other intersecting aspects of your identity. And we've already touched on some of those, like age, being a parent, right? We might also think about gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, ability. So, you know, really just opening the floor if anyone wants to think about, because, you know, we're all, again, we contain multitudes, right? And so as you make your way through the space of higher education, there's a lot of, again, as we said, intersecting identities at play. So the floor is open. Lisa.
As an older student and as a single mom, those would be my intersectionalities as a first-gen non-traditional student. I think the single most important thing to do is claim your space. You know, I deserve to be here. I am entitled to be here, and advocate for yourself. I mean, like, if there is one thing I could pass on to all first generation students, is never be afraid to advocate for yourself. You know, nobody else will do it for you. But once you come forward and you advocate, then you pull in additional advocates. It's like this kind of great domino effect. You bring people along with you, but you have to do the first ask. When I first applied to SPS, my application was rejected. And I knew the student I was going to be, but my transcript didn't reflect that. And it was because I was sloppy in my younger years and I didn't properly withdraw for some classes. So I had these big goose egg zeros on my GPA. When I was rejected, I went back and I asked them why, and then had to go back and point by point address what I missed, and it wasn't easy because my test results were archived and I had to pull them out and then I had to translate them into current test scores. But when I came back, I did get accepted, and there's nobody else that could have done that step but me, and so, advocate, and don't be afraid of your own voice. And, here I am as a white CIS, person, and yet I still have to self-advocate. So people who are, I recognize my privilege. There's people that come to the space with a lot less privilege than me. And so your job as a self-advocate becomes even bigger. So use your voice, use your words, use your power, and claim your space,
Thank you, Lisa, for sharing that, your experience. Ty, did you want to jump in?
Yes, yes, well said, Lisa. I have to say, as a person of color, as a Black man in America, in the big city of New York, in I guess you could say an arena that not really representative of Black men of color, let alone Black women. So, needless to say, when you're going back to a school and you're looking to, again, brighten your horizons, get up that, corporate ladder further, and ultimately learn some of the things that you probably fell short on early in life, you definitely got to advocate for yourself, as Alicia mentioned, because a lot of times you fall into this little category of a doer and not get so much recognition as a thinker, a strategizer, just someone that's a facilitator. So one of the things I've always spoke of every time I've done an engagement like this for SPS is how much the empowerment and how much the confidence grows when you go and you pursue further education. Higher education is not for, the wealthy, it's not for the privileged, it's not for, the person sitting out in the suburbs. It's for everyone. I learned a long time ago, I can't remember which professor told me, I think it was Professor Stephen Bosworth, that once told me, education is the equilibrium and the equalizer in society by standards. So it goes to say, you can come from humble beginnings with trivial means, but when you got the education and the knowledge and you got the tools mentally to be able to create and develop, you put yourself in avenues and doors where the wealthy seeks you, where the so-called elitists reach out to you. You're basically broadening your horizons, and for what it's worth, some people say you're doing a service for whether it's the LGBT community, whether it's the Black community, whether it's the female community. And I look at it as you're doing a global service, because there's a lot of disenfranchisement with those that have the ability, have the talents, have the skills, but just don't have the accessibility. So when you can go out there and you can get some education and you can get the same level and degree of education that those that went to either Ivy League schools or private schools their whole life, you see how much more competitive you are. So when you go into these arenas and you're sitting in these boardrooms and these offices and these meetings and these conferences, you pretty much feel confident what you know is sound and what you know has substance and what you know matters. And that is something that you will carry throughout your entire life and existence beyond the scope of even 4 years in a university or 6 years or 8 years. And like I said, it's giving back. And in order to give back, you need more so you can give more.
You're getting a lot of affirmation in the chat and from your fellow panelists here. Does anyone else want to jump in on that or add anything else to this conversation that hasn't been surfaced yet? That's a hard act to follow, Ty.
Yeah, it is. It is. But this is something I can relate to, especially right now, because I'm like going through a phase where I'm not so satisfied at work and I'm, looking for an increase, and like I'm putting myself out there and saying, hey, I have these experiences and these skills now that I've picked up now, going through the human relations program, and I'm applying that to my job, and that makes me competitive against other people that may be applying on the outside. I'm already in the inside. I have this experience. And although like the director of my unit, she's probably been working for the city for 25 years plus, but I have new and fresh ideas because I'm going to CUNY SPS and I'm applying work-related things to other aspects of life, of anybody that's going through life and working and going to school, like the emotional aspect of it. Like, we're not robots. So, it's a certain way that you're supposed to deal with people in the work aspect. And I feel like a lot of old school people that have already been like, working for the city forever, they're not grasping that. They're not applying that type of knowledge to the workplace at this moment in time. So I feel like I can be like, a fresh voice there to apply what I've learned here and apply that to work.
That's great, Dominique. Ty, did you want to briefly add something, or was your hand just still up? I think you're on mute.
There you go. Dominique, you You would be surprised how many people I mentor, and they tell me the same thing that you're saying, and it's I can say it's heartwarming to realize that we don't have to wait until we're in our twilight years to see the forest for the trees and see the path that can be taken. And when you look at today's society, when you have all these scandals, this is one of the things I love about going to school as an adult, because you got some experience. You can really kind of relate to what you're really reading about. And SPS is, I can say, quintessentially the most prolific place that presents real world case studies and scenarios that we work with and we pick upon in order to get a greater understanding of the theories and the changes that have transcended in industries today. The people that you're sitting with, that you're competing with, like Dominique mentioned, they have knowledge, they might have degrees, they might have education, but some of that stuff is stale. Some of the very things that they learned 20, 30 years ago created the scandals we're living in today. So when you're in an environment where you're learning about these things of yesteryear, and you're learning about the methodologies, the means, the pragmatic natures of how we make a better way about doing business, or a better way about joining people together and connecting and doing public service, which is like nonprofits, and and like with the protests and the organizing and public administration, it's a new way and it's a new age ushering in the next generation. So the knowledge that we're getting, I look at that as being empirical to raising the flags and the banners that's going to come up in the next 10 to 20 years. Because we know what happened yesterday. We're still at that age where we had that experience. We was up underneath mom and dad. We seen the scandals. We read about them. We learned about them, and we're contriving different ways and means to do these things. The next generations that's coming in that's upon us, they're wanting the changes. We could be the bridge between those changes that's going to come and those changes that need to go away. So again, for those that are part of this forum that want to come into the school, and either they're on the fence or they just want to, see how they.
Oh, might have lost Ty's audio.
I think we lost audio.
Take this moment in time to be more reflective of what you accomplished in the last year or two with a pandemic, and think about where you can take that in grit and gumption the next 2 years, the next 20 years, the next millennium.
I think that's a nice segue, and it's a really interesting point, because what you and Dominique were talking about, and then Dr. Knox posted his question, and that actually takes us to our next question, which is, what are the strengths that you feel that you bring to the classroom? So you were talking about, kind of the job world, right? But what do you think you bring into the classroom as a result of being a first generation student? Jade?
I know, like Ty mentioned, that life experience, that experience going through school. It was 8 years the last time I was in school before I started at SPS. So now I have work experience in addition to my life experience. And what I love so much is that you have a very diverse body of students. I had classmates who were in Washington State, California, who weren't, in New York City. So not only do you have a different, outlook, you're dealing with different people, you're on a different side of the United States, you have all these different things that are coming into the classroom. So it's like, oh, what's your experience? What do you do? What do you like to do? Why are you here? Why did you think about coming here? You have all of these things. So I feel that experience that you could really bring is genuine experience. It's not something that you're just going through. It's something that you're really living through at that moment. And I appreciate the different ages, because, sometimes you'll hear stories from, okay, back in my day, and then you're like, okay, that's a little long ago, but you still could apply it to your life. And you could apply or say what you're going through, and they could apply it to their life. So that interchange of, the generations, how I like to call it, and how I appreciated it so much being an SPS. So I really think that experience that we bring to the table is something that really you could build upon while being an SPS. So I think that is like the most important thing that I think we all bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. Great. Lisa?
I think first generation students bring gratitude. All of us had to work hard to get to where we were in the classroom. It wasn't an easy road. And from that gratitude springs determination. It's like, come hell or high water, I'm going to make this happen. And, thanks, Alicia. But yeah, it was like, there was nothing that was going to stop me, no lack of sleep, no work deadlines, I was determined. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity, so it's a combination of gratitude and determination, bringing my game face.
Ty, you have your hand up.
Yes, Lisa, you stole my thunder. You 2 words that I already had written down that I live by, and it's like a tattoo. My 4 Ds: drive, determination, diligence, and again, discipline. And from that, I see everything that I can bring into a classroom. And I'm someone that never, ever in my life wanted to teach. I never wanted to teach. I love to speak, but I never wanted to teach. But needless to say, I find I want to get a PhD because, like you ladies, I want to be able to go in the classroom and give back through the method of teaching and the privilege of dealing with the next generation of minds, both young and old, because through demonstration is what I try to preach and practice every day by everything I do, in order to be able to be a mentor to those that don't think they can accomplish what they might see to be inevitably impossible for them. But in reality, it's definitely doable. But through demonstration, I learned that in society, especially dealing with people that's marginalized, unless you show demonstration, they usually don't buy in. So one of the things that I try to capitulate on, both in my professional life as well as my personal life, and I wish to transcend into an academic profession in life, is how to demonstrate. If you put forth those 4 Ds of drive, determination, diligence, and discipline, you can achieve anything. And that means you can do it when you're young and you can do it old. But again, it has sometimes to be seen. So again, when you have a school and you have a forum such as CUNY School of Professional Studies, it's a blessing. It's a godsend. And like our Dean Mogalescu said, it transcends our walls because we're online. And that means the world is our audience and the world is our scholars.
Hi, once again, you're teeing up the perfect segue for us here with your invocation of the 4 Ds. We want to ask you all to sort of share some advice with other students, and I'm going to limit you again. I'm going to ask you all to really think about sort of like, what's one thing that you wish you had known when you were starting at CUNY SPS? One thing that you would particularly want to convey, particularly to first generation students starting out at our school. Yeah, go ahead, Alicia.
You must take initiative. You have to take initiative. Take the wheel of your life because it will change your trajectory. It will change your future. You have to take initiative because if you don't, you're going to fail. You fail when you don't ask questions. You fail when you don't take that wheel because you are either your biggest fear or your biggest supporter. You have to take initiative.
Unmute. That's really powerfully said, Alicia. And again, I think this is such an important and recurring theme that, it comes back to claiming space, asking questions, right? Jade, do you want to jump in here?
Also, just being open to the experience. This is an amazing experience. It's going to have its good times. It's going to have its bad times. It's not going to be peaches and roses from beginning to end. You're going to have your moments where you like, should I withdraw from all my classes? And I did it every semester. Should I withdraw from all my classes? You're going to have those moments and it's okay to think like that, but you don't want to feed into it. You're going to say, you know what? My end result is to get my degree. My end result is to get my diploma. Let me continue continue to put in this work. You're going to have those moments where you might feel a little self-doubt or wonder, well, why am I here? Think about why you started. Think about the end result and where you're trying to go. So you definitely have to be open to this experience, because if you're not open to it, it's going to be a very one-sided deal, and you don't want one-sided. You want to get the whole opportunity.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, Jade, because I think, sometimes we sort of, it's important to normalize moments of self-doubt. They happen. They're just part of the process, right? And it doesn't mean that you're on the wrong track, right? It's, again, a moment to that we're all going through. Dominique, I see your hand up. Alicia, did you want to jump in and quickly say something back to Jade, or was this a different?
I agree with Jade, and I just wanted to say that let the choices that you make today be proven in the future, because it's our choice.
That's really well said. Dominique, did you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback a little off of what Jade said. You definitely have to put your best foot forward and make a conscious decision to do so when you're enrolling back into a program at this point. Because it's not like we're coming straight from high school and we're jumping into school. Like, now we're full-blown adults, we're juggling life, we're juggling work. So you have to make a conscious effort to want to do this and be interested in the program that you enroll in, because not only can you apply it to work-related things, you can apply it to your personal life as well and make it just feel like a better person overall. I feel like I'm in the human relations program, and it does a lot as far as making sure you're communicating better. And, I feel like it's more than just work. You can come out a better person at the end of it all. You can, be better at work, be better in your personal life, and just be better overall. And I feel like that's worth it. That's worth the ups and downs. That's worth being scared. That's worth feeling accomplished. Like, going through the process of getting back into school has definitely been worth it. And it's unexpected for me, to feel this way about, feeling so accomplished about school, because I thought I wasn't going to be able to do it. I thought I took too long to get back into school. I didn't know that I can, succeed to this point. So it's definitely a great feeling at the end of it all. So I would encourage anybody to just take that leap of faith and go for it, because you don't know what's going to happen unless you try.
That's such good wisdom. Ty, and then over to Lisa.
I'll just go as far as to say, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. My advice, network, network, network. If you walk in the door, you're sitting with people, they're just as nervous and just as fearful and scared and, and uncertain about what's going to happen as you are. Network with them. Because when you start the network early on, when you get to those bumps in the roads, you're already going to have people that's going to be there for you because you have a network. And you work within that network. And that transcends from the students to the faculty to the administration. And one of the things that we always hear in life is it ain't what you know, it's who you know. Well, when you start establishing networks earlier on, down the line, who you know is right there in your network. So when you want to go out and you want to try new endeavors and take upon, mastering the universe, you have the teams that you're going to need in order to succeed, because no man, no woman can succeed on their own. So through a team, you can surely succeed much faster and with less waste of resources. So establish that now and you'll see sky's the limit. The world is yours.
That's great. Lisa, you get to have the last word on this question, and then we're going to ask our big finale question after this.
I feel like my question piggybacks off of Jade and Dominique and Alicia and Ty. I think be as involved as you can be within the school. Join clubs, join student government, join the newspaper, whatever you can, that's being open, that's taking initiative, that's building your network all at once. And it makes the college experience so much richer. And particularly for first generation students, we have a hard time because we feel like we're not entitled, or this isn't really our space, or we're not supposed to be here. But claim your space and get involved. And it just, I didn't do it my first semester. because I was returning to school after a long break and I didn't know what it would be like. But my second semester, I started getting involved with the school, and it just, I got back so many gifts, for that involvement. And that would be my big advice.
That's great, Lisa. And I know, I like how you said sort of at the end that there is this sort of reciprocity, that you're giving your time, but you're getting a lot back too, right? It's an investment in that sense. Dr. Marquez Lewis, over to you.
Yeah. So, I think there's a lot of research, right, about first generation college students, and we can all read that research and we can learn. But one of the things that we wanted to do with this series, and part of the way that Dr. Alsop opened, was to say that we wanted to come to you. You are the experts on not just your experiences, but hopefully representative of others at SPS who are first generation students. So our last question is really to ask you what you think SPS and really just higher education institutions in general, what should they know about first generation college students? And also, a little step further, what recommendations would you give to us as an institution about how we can be more supportive of first generation students?
It's a biggie.
The biggie, yeah. Who would like to start? Lisa.
I'll jump in with the obvious. What you're doing right now, this is so important. Providing support, providing a place for first gen students to learn about what it means to be in college. It's not intuitive. College has to be self-driven. We have to come in and advocate for ourselves, and we have to do a lot of the work, but we need help in knowing how to do that work. And this does it. This provides it. And, just more of the same, and market it. So you're hitting all the students, that might be outside the normal channels, and, make sure that the message gets out that these kind of things exist, and offer them a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we plan to do so. So we'll talk about it at the end, but we have events for the spring. We'll have events every semester going forward. And we want to continue to provide spaces and information for this type of conversation. Ty.
Well, again, I have to second what Lisa says, because the one thing I can say, first generation college students generally are fearful. They're scared because, again, they lived a lot of life. They had their bumps in the roads, probably a lot of, probably some success, but probably a lot of failures. So needless to say, if you can get that comfort level up, and like Lisa alluded to, if you can create a safe space, then college doesn't become something scary. It becomes something that is, inevitably just another road that we travel. And with that, most people will look at the engagement as being no more than meeting new friends, both whether they're professors or whether they're their classmates or the administration. And ultimately, we have a lot more first generation students becoming first generation graduates.
And first generation administrators and on and on
Yes,
and on.
And on.
Jade.
Take on a life of its own.
Yes.
I'm going to third what Lisa and Ty said as well. I agree. Definitely having events like this. And, your first generation, you are scared. That's not something that it just comes with the territory, I want to say. So, pairing up and letting them know, because you're getting people from all walks of life, all different age types. There's no more 18 coming into college. You got 30 coming into college, 40 coming into college, 50 coming into college. So there's no one way to do it. It's being inclusive of everybody, their ages, the tasks they have to take on. You have moms, you have people who have families, family obligations, work obligations, managers, people who aren't managers. You have all these different moving parts of people's lives who are first generation college students. So catering to them all where they do feel included, where they can can take part in clubs, where they can continue to be that role model for their families. Being a mom isn't easy. I'm not a mom, but just seeing what my own mom has gone through shows me it's not an easy task being a mother. It's hard. That's a full-time job that you get no days off for. So, being inclusive to all of that and helping them see, okay, you can continue to be in college and be a part of things and still continue to have your life outside of that, I think will be extremely fruitful and helpful to everybody who turns around and wants to come to college as first-generation college students.
Great. Thank you all. We're going to move now to open it up for Q&A. So feel free to post your questions in the chat and we'd be happy to answer them. We'll have you answer them.
Yeah, and I think you may be able to raise your hand too, and maybe we could unmute you. I'm not sure. May also be an option. I think I see Dr. Knox, our director of our business program. Go ahead.
Hey, how's everyone? I actually was doing something else and was off camera for a little bit, but certainly listening intently to what you all are saying. How do you help? It seems like all of you are intrinsically motivated, that you got this sort of self-motivation, but all students don't come like you. How do we help them? How do we help them understand what you understand? Have you given some thought, like maybe if you think about friends in your community who wanted to go to school, but they were dealing with this fear? How do you help them understand or get over fear so they can be available to go through a process like this?
Good evening, Dr. Knox. Great question. I will say, through example, when you're dealing with communities where you're a part of the community and friends and family that see you and know you and knows your goods, your bads, your uglies even, when they see that you can accomplish again, through demonstration, and they can actually see you have gone through the rigmaroles, then sometimes they look at it as, well, if he could do it or if she can do it, I can do it. But it also takes some levels of collaboration. So I will say through partnering, like mentoring. A lot of people look at mentors as people that's way up on the ladder, helping people way down the bottom. But you can be younger and mentor somebody older. You can be male, mentor somebody female. So I will always say through mentorship projects like a Mentor 360, where people come in and they partner with people that are either, upperclassmen or ultimately alumni, and they can help them go through those struggles, help them weed through those, forests. They can pretty much find that, the fear was shortcoming and they know they're not in it alone. Because sometimes, as we know, we have family members that are not as supportive. So these individuals are going out on a limb, but they can see that a family, some you inherit, some you develop. And as a family, we always there for them. So I think mentoring would be definitely a key element towards helping them get through those jitters, the early stage jitters.
Great. I'm not sure, Jade or Lisa, who had their hand up first.
Jade.
Jade, go for it.
I think honest conversation is something that needs to be had. I think sometimes we tend to veer away from that honest conversation, scared we're going to hurt somebody's feelings, but sometimes we need to have those conversations. I find people appreciate your honesty and they appreciate you being real and open with them. They appreciate where you're coming from, showing that you genuinely care. And I remember I had a student tell me one day, because I had to get very honest with her, she came back and she said, I could tell you really genuinely care about me because no one has ever said anything like that to me before. So I think those raw conversations where you're not sugarcoating, I always tell my students, you're not Cinderella and I'm not your fairy godmother, so I'm going to give it to you as real as I could give it to you. I said, so please don't get offended, but this is only because I care. And so they appreciate that. The ones who really appreciate it, take it and apply it. And sometimes down the road, some of them come back and say, I remember you being that way with me and I appreciate that. So those real unfiltered conversations, I think, are extremely important to have.
I'm a big believer in passion. I think show a student your passion, show a student your fire, and that fire, that spark passes and becomes a brush fire. Tell your stories, tell, the struggles you went through, your triumphs, those are the most powerful messages of anything. But, it all comes down to if you love what you're doing, inevitably, I think that passes on,
See, we have 3 more hands raised, I think, for questions. And I saw Jessica first, and then our Dean, George Adi, and then Karen Gonzalez. So Jessica, I think if you can unmute, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's not so much a question. I am new to SPS, but I sent a message to Elizabeth, and I was telling her that I am listening to you guys, and I am basically in tears because everything that you guys are saying is what I am literally going through. But I think one of the best testimony is the way is people who are around you, who know you, the life you live. And because for me, being one of the first out of 7 children going to finishing high school and going to college, and I went to a particular college, graduating with honor rolls, and that endeavors my sisters to go who didn't want to go to school. People from my church asking me, how did you manage with your family, going to school full-time, working full-time, nights? How did you do it? And so I think one of the best testimonies that we can give is how we live our lives, how we show people that when you fall, you're going to rise and you're going to do what you have to do to get to where you want to get. And people will see that and want to know. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. They will come to you because that's what they have been doing to me. They come, how did you do it? My children are my greatest supporters. It's a competition in my house for who is bringing home the better grades, and rewards are given. So between me and my kids, I can't bring home nothing under 80%, or else I'm going to be disciplined by my kids. So I agree with a lot of things that Ty said and the rest of the panelists. It's a competition. And when you have your children looking up to you, supporting you, that's all you need to get to where you're going, because they want to do the things that their mother, their parent is doing to get to that level. I was searching for a school and I got admitted into 2 different colleges, but for some reason I end up at SPS. And I am grateful. I love the professors that I have. They will give you extension. They work with you. I love it. I love it. I love it. And when this is over, I will be back to get my other degree. So guys, I am happy to be a part of this family. Sorry, I missed the deadline to be a part of the panelists because I had 2 deaths in my family. But I am here and I will do whatever I can to make life where it should be. So thank you guys for all your support, your encouragement, and I love this. Keep it up.
Jessica, thank you so much. And don't worry, there will be more opportunities to get involved. So yeah, we're delighted. We're sorry you weren't on the panel, but thank you so much for sharing your comments. We're really glad you're here.
Thank you.
Sure. Or Senior Associate Dean George Adi.
Thanks, Elizabeth, Dr. Alsop. I'm going to sort of follow up on something Dr. Knox said earlier, and to begin with a compliment that, you guys are so amazing. You're so eloquent. I feel like I should, and I have been taking notes, and then it occurred to me, this is recorded, and I feel like I should watch it right after it ends and multiple times thereafter. But, I also have a sense that you're kind of special in a way, and I'm going to be specific about that, we are talking about first generation students, and one of the documented things about them is the way they sort of hang back and sort of, it's not wholly out of fear, It's a special problem with online because if you don't hit the ground running, if you don't engage right at the very beginning, you're going to be playing catch up the rest of the term. And so my question to you is, what can we do to and I think Lisa already began to answer this, show your passion, but not just individual instructors, but as a school, what can we do to impress upon people that this is not a place to just sit back and sort of watch like TV. It's a place where you find a way of standing out, and it's a performative space. It's online learning is social learning, and we need to get those students engaged from the very beginning, because we lose them much more in that very first term than at any other time.
Anyone want to offer some suggestions? Ty, I think I saw you first, and then Lisa.
Yes. Good day, Dean. What I can say is this: some of the core requirements, like the discussion board, okay, asynchronous learning is great because you can do it at your leisure and everything else. But maybe by incorporating some more synchronous sessions where the students can actually gain credit for some of the discussion boards posts by interacting during a synchronous session with the professors more frequently, might open up avenues where they will, put aside the television, get on the screen, but actually have to interact. Because now what they're gonna have to do is they're gonna have to go preemptively and read the textbook, read the material, draw their conclusions, and then get on the screen with the professor and their classmates and actually articulate that which is their understanding of the curriculum. And by doing so, they'll get more fluid with being able to engage both the professor and their classmates, being able to speak out and challenge and question and even take, constructive criticism or critique in their understandings. And that might, I guess, bridge some of the reluctance to students trying to be engaged. Because yes, they might want to type out, a dissertation to be read later on, but some students might find that the time that they spent an hour typing out that which they can convey in 5 minutes or 10 minutes in a session for 45 minutes of their time might be much more conducive to better time management.
Everyone wants to weigh in. I think Lisa, and then I saw Jade, and then I think Dominique, maybe you two wanted to share, or maybe not, but go ahead, Lisa.
I work as an orientation mentor, and in orientation, I often see that, students are coming in, and it's first generation students and not first generation students, but there's been a break a lot of times, and they're working full time, often they're parents, and they're taking full load, 5 classes their first semester, and I swallow every time. I can't tell them not to. Lots of times it's for financial aid purposes, but I just know how hard it is to work and go to school online. And one semester, I took 3 classes and I thought I would kill myself. I really wanted to die. I was so sleep deprived, I was hallucinating, and I'm not exaggerating. So when I see these students coming in and taking, 4 and 5, even 3 classes their first semester in, I'm like, I die for them, because I'm just like, I don't know how this is going to work. And again, I'm not going to say that, but I think, it would help to give students some guidance in the beginning as to what is realistic to achieve if you're, working full time, if you have family, be realistic about what those guidelines are. Or what is achievable, because I think we probably lose students to burnout, especially in that first semester.
Thanks for raising that, Lisa. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I really try to counsel students who ask, but it is a challenge. And I see, Carla, you're saying the same. Jade, do you want to jump in
I
here?
would say definitely the professor setting the tone for the class. I know my first semester, I decided to take one class because I was out of school for 8 years. I had to get back into the swing of being in school, having coursework to do and working full time. But my professor did a really good job of setting the tone of what was expected from me as a student and what I needed to do in the class in order to do well. And not just go through the class, but learn and really retain the information that I was learning. So I really appreciated the fact that he really set that tone for us. You know, like I said, different walks of life, everybody has life going on. So having professors set that tone, and I think this pandemic has really kind of shaped up everybody in CUNY in regards to online, because every time I look, SPS, 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 because I'm like, I did fully online and my experience is nothing like my students' experiences. So I think that foundation is extremely important. And I know Ty had mentioned it as well. And I really think that Zoom would have been a game changer for me if we had that interaction online with our classmates. You know, you see what a person's writing, you kind of get it in your mind, but to actually have a moment like this, it changes everything. So I think starting with the professors and setting that tone, exactly what you look for, what you need from your students and what you want them to present is important.
Well, thank you all. We want to be mindful of everyone's time and, wrap up our conversation for this evening. But again, this won't be the last time we'll be having these kinds of conversations. We invite you back to participate in future events. We're going to put up the slide right now for the upcoming events that we have for the spring. I know it's a ways away, but as you know, time flies. So in the spring, we have 2 events planned. One is going to be about financial aid and funding college, which someone raised that issue about taking, Lisa, I think it was you, about taking a lot of classes that, and oftentimes that has to do with how students are thinking about funding their college education. And then also one about imposter syndrome, overcoming that self-doubt and feeling like maybe you don't belong or you're the only one not getting things. And how wrong students usually are about that. So those events will be on March 29th and April 26th, respectively. So we hope that you'll join us then. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Alsop to kind of wrap us all up. And I just want to say that we really appreciate you joining us. And thank you to our panelists and to all of you for attending this evening.
Yeah, I'll just echo Dr. Marquez Lewis's thanks. It's so wonderful to have this group here. I know how busy everyone is, how many competing obligations. We're so very appreciative of your time. This is such a rich conversation, and I think we could obviously all keep talking. So we hope to be able to continue it at subsequent events. And thanks to our audience members for their great questions. And of course, to our panelists. So maybe we could all give them a round of virtual applause here. And yeah, we're so grateful to have you at our school. So thanks so much, everyone, for being here. Have a great night.